Running our own business isn't easy, and it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And on ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things just that little bit easier by interviewing guests who have been where you are now, regardless of where you are on the scale-up journey, and maybe facing some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked well for them, as well as what didn't, of course. And we've also combined many of these lessons into a practical scale-up handbook called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And there's details of this at the end of the episode. So welcome to ScaleUp Radio. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm delighted today to be joined by David Harkin, who is the CEO and founder of 8 Billion Ideas. So David, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Thank you very much for having me. How are you today, Kevin?
Yeah, really good. And we had a chat just beforehand. It sounds like things are going very well for you as well. So I'm really looking forward to hearing all about 8 Billion Ideas. So do you want to tell us, what is it? What is 8 Billion Ideas?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. We're an edtech and services company. So we're going to start with that. So we're a blend of both, which I'm a big believer in, that kind of power of tech and the power of the person combined, particularly in education. So that's what we are, we're B2B. So just being really clear on the way that we operate. But as an organization, we have a clear mission in education, which is about giving students the skills and belief to go change the world. And we concentrate on 5 areas of what is typically being called extracurriculum learning, but we've reframed it to call critical curriculum learning, which is entrepreneurship, career education, life skills, performance and well-being. And we're expanding out into sustainability and technology. No doubt very soon in the years ahead. So these are often been subjects which are hard to teach in schools. They've been headaches for decades since the education system has kind of evolved. And the main reason is because those topics are hard to teach, and often schools are limited by potential catchment areas to bring people into schools and expertise. So it's been a constant struggle, really. And often, I think the second thing, it's been low down the actual education agenda for far too long. Right. Now we're seeing it rise up because, career education, we've got to broaden horizons to young people. Skills has been a topic talked about for donkeys. And then lastly, entrepreneurship is taught incorrectly, and there's a lot of misconceptions about what an entrepreneur is or isn't in school. So we're seeing the rise of interest in this area, quite rightly, about time, predominantly coming from actually students themselves, which has had that ripple effect to the teaching community and parents being really interested in what we do. So EdTech and Services B2B, currently operating in 15 countries, grown out of the UK, nearly a team of 40, hiring out in the Middle East now, and working across the sector, cross curriculum, cross age groups, which is why I think we're getting the scale and the growth that we're getting.
So when did you say you started?
2.5 years ago.
Blimey.
So it's been a crazy journey. We were prior to that, my background had started in education. I was beginning to learn about some of the problems, and prior to that was working in IBM in the tech sector. But around COVID, we kind of really saw, I think for the first time, EdTech was being seen in a different kind of light in education. And watching people like Joe Wicks and the way that he was teaching PE through YouTube and the screen, it kind of got my head buzzing about hopefully post-COVID tech would be, really receptive in schools, which is proving to be the case, that it's helping solve problems that people didn't necessarily think they could be solved a number of years ago. Maybe misconceptions around what edtech is and tech is, and it's all got to be flashy, the next bit of gadget, but actually sometimes just going back to basics and using that screen incredibly well in the classroom. We were hoping for and betting for that would be adopted by the sector. And so when we were watching Joe, we thought, hang on, some of these hard topics, if you've got great facilitator, great education behind the screen, but what I was stubborn on was, it needs that blend of services. So if they're learning from somebody behind a screen, that person at some point needs to go out and see them. Yeah. And then you get that magic. And we've been stubborn on that point. A lot of people were trying to push us into pure tech, and we just knew it wasn't going to work. And we wanted scalability. So we knew we needed the tech, but it's proven to be the right call.
Yeah, and that, as you say, that's where that real magic happens. You can ask real questions to a real person in real time, can't you? As opposed to something online. Even if it's live, it still feels a bit remote, doesn't it?
It does, obviously the rise of chat GPT, all this discussion now, there's still schools rely on relationships and partnerships, which, that's not just talking and engaging with the student, but even getting to that point that you're engaging and working with the student, you're working with adults to make sure that you're integrated in timetable or supporting the schools in kind of drop down days or after school activities. So you've got to work with the teaching community as well, and they really value that relationship. So the service is on different levels. It's not just actually what the child has experienced, it's what the parent and the teacher has experienced as well. So working with people for sure. But when a child is learning through someone in a kind of asynchronous way or virtually, but live, that's amazing. But when that individual goes out and sees them as well, and they get to meet somebody from the 8Build team, it gives that extra energy to what we're doing. So yeah, it's a big part of our USP.
So how does the business model work? How do you make money?
So B2B, so our clients are directly schools, colleges, grammar schools, independent schools, international schools, young offender units. It's organizations which they hold the budget pots. So effectively being B2B, they're looking at our portfolio services, which are from 4 to 18-year-olds. And we're building individualized scopes of work for every school that we engage with. And they're directly paying for it. And it comes out of different budget pots in different schools for different reasons. But these are different areas of the curriculum that they have to teach. And they've often been, throwing money at these areas for years, but in the wrong kind of way, or struggling with ways that they can get cost-effective solutions in school. So it's not that schools have never had to teach the areas that we concentrate on. They've had to do it, right, but they've had to do it in a very sometimes bootstrapped way, or very do it all their own way, and it's quite it can be cost draining for them. So they look at us with sometimes you can see the shoulders drop, and you can see the excitement of engaging with us, because we're going to solve a lot of problems in them. And actually they are spending money on this out of different budget pots, but they kind of redirect it to 8Build, and they see us effectively as they relate it to the cost of a teacher in their school, which is taking care of a big part of the curriculum, a big part of areas that they struggle to teach. Right. That's often how we see our buyer, our partner, look at us when they're building a scope with us. They're often saying, wow, actually you're going to take care, arguably outsource a lot of this problem for us, and complement what we are trying to do in the school ourselves.
So they would then be able to focus back on what they might view to be more core curriculum. But I know you challenge.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you go back to pure business, if they're building an ROI case to work with 8Build, they're thinking, hang on, we've got to teach this anyway. We're a school X in city X or wherever it might be. And the options we've got is employ a lot of people, ask teachers who are incredibly busy to do even more, or we look for genuine partnerships. So they start to outsource this, and we get integrated in the school just like a teacher, but kind of an external team. So that's how they just, effectively teachers and principals and CEOs are kind of justifying that kind of expenditure. So you've got to make sure that, I guess with any product, is that it's solving problems, number one, and it does have an ROI. And some additional benefits on top of the problem that it's solving. So, but as soon as we get into a school, and as soon as we get into a group of schools, we get that initial piece of work, and it's that we just build out from there.
And how are you combining then that ed tech with the services side of things, with the people side?
All different in all of our schools. So sometimes that relationship isn't just the facilitator. It could be the project manager. It could be the partnership lead, maybe from the commercial part of the business. And more often than not, you're also trying to get obviously the facilitators into the school, and that kind of teaching team that we have into the school, meeting them. So it's just balancing it from a relationship point of view. So it might be 1 in 5, 1 in 6 engagements is somebody's in the school and live, and the rest is kind of is virtual and some sort of different capacity. But given that we've got currently operating in 15 different countries, so we literally have 15 different approaches and tactics in different places depending on it. And when you're working with different age groups, you again have different approaches, from our youngest students who are 4 and 5 to our 17, 18-year-olds.
Yeah, and my mind is just boggling really at how you've been able to do that in such a short period of time. 2.5 years, as you say, you're dealing with 15 different countries, so 15 different potential education systems. You're dealing, as you said, again, with a range of ages of children, so the curriculum's got to be different. How on earth have you managed to create really valuable, useful content from a tech point of view and the services side across such a wide range in such a short period of time?
magic. No, not magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of hard work. No, I think, look, it comes down to two things. What we concentrate is a global problem. So what we're teaching, it doesn't matter if it's a school in the Middle East, the UK, Asia, America, these topics of career education, entrepreneurship, these are global areas of educational interest. And what we believe is that the vast majority of our experiences, which are effectively modules of learning, which build up our products, 75-80% of any lesson is transferable to any culture around the world. So you could take a topic within entrepreneurship or an area maybe in our skills agenda, such as decision making 101 is an interesting lesson we have for students in their middle years. About 80% of that is probably transferable to a child in a school in Abu Dhabi, in Manchester, in Hong Kong. Then what happens with that lesson, it needs, so we call that the atomic part of the lesson, that atomic module part of it. Then you need different variations of it, depending on local role models, currencies, cultural sensitivities, all these different things. So you've got to have your approach to building your curriculum and your content. You need to be systematic that it is scalable in a way, but equally you're not creating the same lesson 50 times. You're creating one world-class lesson with a number of variations. So it's got to start with that. The second thing it's got to start with is high quality work. So this is a sector which is word of mouth, with recommendations and relationships. So when you launch a business and you speak on stage and you find a way of being heard in that kind of early phases where you have to bootstrap a business and you don't have a gazillion pounds to market it, you've got to find a way of, how do I get to my early adopters? How do I get to the innovators out there? And very quickly, when you speak at events and you speak on stage, they gravitate towards you anyway. So they loved it. How can we get to go? And then when you've got that first glimmer of an opportunity to work with someone, you've got to absolutely smash it out of the park. Mm-hmm. And once you do that and you've earned the credibility, you then need to build on it. And even if you haven't smashed it out of the park and there's been some sort of deliverable issue or whatever it might be, you build a relationship based on transparency and adjustment and sometimes vulnerability, and saying, look, we're going to do this and we're going to build on it. And that's what this sector really values, is actually long-term relationships. 99 out of 100 heads don't want something as a one-off. They want something integrated into their school, which is going to really add value to their community. And they're fully aware that to get to that level of kind of perfect glove fit, that sometimes partnerships need to just start, adjust, move, and then they end up flourishing. We've got a great example with one of our strategic partners, GEMS, in the Middle East, where we started with 2 of their schools, expanded to 8, now working with 30 of their schools. And that was a great example of early adopters warming towards us, getting that credibility, building out, and just having a fantastic relationship with a great organization such as GEMS.
So you've got about 40 people. So how are they split in the kinds of the roles? Because I'm guessing you've got exactly what you've said. You've got the content creation and the adaptation for the different markets. You've got the tech side. You've got the service delivery side. How are those 40 roughly sort of split?
Yeah, we've been everything's created by us internally, which is what we love and always will be. So you've been product heavy in that first phase, because you go to market with your idea, your problem, your positioning, and then you build, right? So the team is effectively split into sales, marketing, design, content, studio, operations, which includes our facilitations, people, finance, compliance. Hopefully I've not forgotten anything there. So you've got those natural segments of a business, but there's a real strong, like the product, which is kind of combination of content, studio, design, working very closely with sales and marketing on positioning and kind of adjustment. So we've got some really, we've got a fantastic team of rock stars, really dedicated people making their mark. But then what happens in that early phase is you're more product heavy. And actually what's probably most remarkable about our growth to date is when you look at our turnover from last year, only 1.4% was spent on marketing. Okay. Like very, very, very little. Yeah. And very small kind of commercial team, which is obviously what we're concentrating on now, on kind of growing out. Now we've kind of gone through the messy middle of product development, ironing out where we really, really want to focus on, and getting ready for an exciting period of scale. So you've got a normal band, nothing probably too surprising there. Some more crossovers than you would expect. So quite flat in terms of how the team work together. But a lot of it's been, getting the product build right, and then when you've got an opportunity to do great work, do some great work. And equally, what's exciting when you look at our growth is that kind of references across the sector, not just one part of it, which is something we were really conscious of in the first couple of years.
Very, very, very good. And what's your competition look like? What are you up against?
I've had the same conversation with VCs, and I've learned to keep an eye, but not really be bothered, because it's, there isn't, because we've gone for this edtech and kind of services blend of what we do, that is very unique, right, in the sector. So a lot of people do one or the other. They don't try and combine the both. So that's one thing. In terms of, when we look at competitors or people working in different areas, you often find people concentrating on maybe one of those pillars rather than taking care of all of them. So people, and a specific age group in a specific part of the sector. When we look at the landscape, I think not being bothered is probably too flippant for me, but and sounds a bit gung-ho, but we're aware that a lot of people are very niche-y in what they do, which is fine, but scaling niches is sometimes really difficult, particularly in this learning piece. If you're more in the edtech space of really software development, solving a very operational problem, that's fine. But if you're helping students to pass GCSEs in maths and that's all you do, then that's hard to really get mass scale. So we see lots of niche kind of individuals, which is which is out there, but because we've got that blend, it's very rare, and we really just want to concentrate on growing ourselves, concentrate on growth, right? Concentrate on what we're doing, building solid relationships, and we know the business and the brand will continue to build off the back of that. I actually see our competitors slightly differently. I think a child is, when they're going through our learning, a competitor is not necessarily another edtech company. It's another screen. It's Netflix, it's YouTube, it's their phone. That's where I see the competitiveness. Like, how do we get that child engaged? And maybe when one of our facilitators in the classroom is, I'm not saying the competitor is another teacher at all, but how do we go about the way that we engage in teaching and grab the attention of that child in the classroom? We need to be different in that kind of perspective. So the competition maybe is a little bit different than a direct competitor.
Yeah, I love that. I love that where you put that, and it's because we quite often forget when we do any kind of competitor analysis. A lot of us are quite often guilty about being too narrow about how we think there, because it could be, as you say, it could be how else do they spend their time. It might be something indirectly competitive, but it's how they spend their time. It could be whether they might spend their money because they could solve the problem in a completely different way. It wouldn't be a direct competitor, but something else.
In the UK, the direct competitor right now is building budgets. So you've got to be realistic. You've got to go, in certain governments, certain countries, your competitor can be completely different than maybe a direct piece. So you got to be a bit open-minded on it, and equally you can't be absolutely paranoid about it, because you won't just concentrate on what you need to do in the short term. So it's funny when you have those conversations with VCs and big funding communities who are looking to grill you on it. But I think the reality is your competition is in lots of different ways for lots of different businesses, and you just got to be a little bit open-minded.
And of course, one of the key things you're competing against is the status quo. They could carry on as they are already, and just doing what you would consider to be a relatively poor job of it, but they could carry on just doing that, couldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, schools are just brilliantly busy places. They've got too much to do. Like governments all around the world are asking far too much from our schools, and fundamentally not giving them the resources to achieve what they need to actually achieve. Like, interesting stats are children are only at school for 15% of their waking hours, but we're demanding all this learning to happen. So you're seeing some interesting trends and conversations. One of the biggest, worries and opportunities in education globally is global retention and recruitment of people into the sector. It is a busy sector. Teacher workload is through the roof. So you're seeing a lot of teachers leaving the profession, or certain countries being very attractive for teachers to go towards, which are kind of swallowing up a lot of talent, which is great for those countries, but challenging for potentially others. And I guess the opportunity there is that for us is that, we can help schools who are in that situation right now. Like what we're teaching isn't going to go away, but we could probably solve a lot of problems for us if they speak to us and talk to us, and maybe take away a lot of worries, and enhance significantly those areas of learning that we concentrate on.
Very good. And you mentioned a couple of times conversations with VCs, and we'll maybe get into that in a minute. But how did you counteract what I can well imagine was their stance, which was, well, no, it's just got to be tech, because then we can just go huge very quickly. So how did you counteract that?
Well, my I'm pretty blunt individual. My feeling is you've got to understand the market. You can read, you can look, you can be out the loop or whatever, but the reality is very few pure tech businesses go boom as a B2B product with a high average contract value. Like it's very, very rare. I mean, look, there's not a global brand out there yet, keyword yet, which is known really for education, and that's what I feel like 8Bill can go. But you need that blend. You're not going to go out there. The sector is busy, so you need to help your clients. They've got a lot going on, and teachers have a huge amount of demand. So if you just you can have a great product and say, here it is, like I'm giving you gold, but they might not even have time to look at that gold and see how shiny it is or whatever it might be. But if you say, look, I'm going to give you something which is really of value, and I'm going to be there to help you. I'm going to make sure if there's a problem, we're going to be there. I'm going to show you the benefits. I'm going to be there. Then they're really much more receptive to it. So I will continue to believe that you need that touch of service in any kind of relationship in this sector if you want to grow as a business. Very, very, very few go boom, but we're showing that we're growing, and I believe that's the reason why.
Great. And by the way, where did 8 billion ideas, or the name 8Bill, where did it come from?
Came from a pub conversation.
Often the best ones too.
It was looking at the growth of the planet. It was building a business and a vision that was global, which was the 8 billion people on the planet, and it was connecting people, with their imagination and growth. So it was looking at a global perspective. Was what we were doing. And it's proved to be helpful, and I think that's important for businesses which are looking to scale. Like you've got to get that, you've got to build a brand, you've got to build a business, right? At the same time, I had an interesting conversation with an entrepreneur earlier today, who built a business turning 35-40 million pounds over a good period of time, and just said he doesn't know how other entrepreneurs do it, who just concentrate on it's fine, we'll make money one day, it's going to be okay kind of vibe, and keep kind of it. And I'm in the same kind of camp, right? You want to build a business which is big, making a big impact, which has solid foundations. But fundamentally, if you've got solid financial foundations, you've got more control, and you've got more power, and you've got more decision making. So why would you not want to do that from the start of any kind of business venture? So that's been a priority of ours to date.
Good. So how do you keep, for those you just mentioned there, somebody to build a business turning over tens of millions, but over a period of time, you've gone bang in 2.5 years to 40 people, 15 countries, whatever. How have you kept control of? Have you managed to keep control of that rapid growth?
Good people in the team for sure, and good clients, good partners. I think it's been what it's about. As someone said to me early doors, one of your most important hires is going to be your director of people that you bring in. And we've got an amazing director of people, Joe Oakley, which drives that for sure. So it means that, people coming into your business are taking responsibility of it. I think when they come in is important as well. My philosophy to them is be you, be curious, and make your mark. Your job is to come here and make us a better business than we are today, than we were yesterday. And I think that's an important message for people to hear. So I think hiring good people, setting the right tone, but then also being clear to everybody about where we are and what the journey is. And we're going to face problems, and what we're doing is trailblazing. So, if you're up for it, then jump in the boat. If it's not quite for you, then jump out of the boat. But people which come into the business have a lot of shared values. A lot of business people who come into the business, in fact, everybody wants to make their mark,
right? Which
is good, which means you get a lot of work done in a short period of time. So that's definitely helped. But it's It's also, I think, in the early phases, sometimes not shying away from a brief, which might not quite be what was in the kind of imagination of product development, or where you were, or a certain country, like we're going to concentrate on this region, this part of the segment, and then a new brief comes in from somewhere completely different. You could, some entrepreneurs might go, actually, no, that's not quite where we want to work. I'd encourage you sometimes to explore that. You don't know where it could take you, and what it could do. So we've been quite open to new opportunities at times, and it's taken us down some really exciting paths.
Good. So take us through some of the key milestones then. So you started 2.5 years ago. How did you get started, and what are some of the key inflection points along the relatively short journey so far?
Yeah, so we launched in April 2021 now. And I guess a key milestone before that was the signing of a private equity deal. A second key milestone was the collapse of a private equity deal.
All right.
Weeks before launch, which caused a huge amount of stress and probably the start of some grey hairs. So that was probably the worst and best thing which happened to us, because what it led us towards being more angel driven from the beginning, and actually an amazing set of angels coming on board to drive help drive the fundraising of the business. So that was number one. I think day 4 of the business as well was key, because predominantly when we started, there was a feeling that B2C was going to be a bigger immediate growth opportunity. And actually within 3 or 4 days of launch, I realized, and not necessarily the team realized, until I kind of told them on day 5 that we were going to immediately pivot the product development. So B2B was in the plan, but later down the line, a little bit later down the line, it was, this is happening now, guys. We're not going to wait. We need to change immediately. So we had 3 quick milestones, from a private equity deal being signed to collapse, and then a product change on day 4 of launch. But within the first month, it proved to be the right decision, as we literally immediately became revenue generating on that switch. So that was one. I'd say that was a big kind of lot happening in a short space of time.
So can we just unpick that a little bit? Why did that deal collapse?
The many different reasons. Quite a youthful. Be careful what I can or can't say. But fundamentally, their funding wasn't in place, and couldn't commit to the term sheet signed. So,
what advice could you give to somebody considering going down that route, then, based on your experience?
If you're genuinely starting from scratch, angel. Right, I would 100%. What we were doing was big, right, and is big. And when I look back and go, we had what we thought was an amazing opportunity to kind of take funding off the table, as it were, and get our heads down. If we went down that path, there's not a chance we would be where we are today. Absolutely not. So that's why I say it was the worst and best thing, because what it did is it pivoted us to immediate angel. We raised £250,000 in 10 days from some fantastic founding angels who wanted to get behind the business. That actually led us to having more creativity, more control, more flexibility, allowed to make probably more errors in the early phases to move quicker to what would be and should be the product. And I think if we went down starting off, without being revenue generating but being PE backed, it would have led us to spending probably more money on things which weren't going to work in a short space of time, and killing what is an amazing idea, an amazing business.
Okay. And to what extent did you said you pivoted after 4 or 5 days? To what extent did you have to go back to the angel investors and say, all right, well, we've got a slight change here?
Well, the angel came after that, really, because we found a way of surviving the first week, which was high pressured. But there's no worse a feeling when you've been working on something for a good period of time, launching it and realizing that you've missed the spot a little bit here, not a little bit, a big bit, and we're going to have to do something urgently. But by the time the back end of that 10-day period, the angel conversations were quickly coming to a close. We were already getting orders in and commitments from probably 3 or 4 different regions of the world, which is quite interesting. So, we had great backing and support from them. And the message was pretty much hold your nerve, Dave, was the message in that early phase.
Yeah.
And so you got to do it. Sometimes people do it too long, and they forget that any kind of funding is an honor, is a privilege, that people are backing you and supporting you on an idea, and you got to do your utmost to return and do your best on it. Some people forget that, and they just seem to spend a lot of money very quickly. But I've never forgotten that, and never will.
Yeah. Still got to spend it as if it was your own money, haven't you?
100%. I mean, interestingly, I had a conversation yesterday with somebody relating a relatively small order to the cost of a bottle of Prosecco, and I said, think about how many Proseccos. If you don't ever belittle something as small as this particular transaction, were relatively small, but added up to a significant cost of Proseccos. And I said, you wouldn't just throw out Proseccos out of your kitchen fridge. And for that individual, relatively, great member of the team, it was like, fair point. Actually, that is, we shouldn't even belittle any kind of transaction as a business. We should treat everything like it's our own money, and that's important.
So is that, and what you're saying as well before is that difficult balance of, because you obviously moved very quickly. You realised something wasn't working, failed quickly, if you like, and changed it. But equally, you want to have you've got to know when to hold your nerve, because at certain times that is what you have to do. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think probably all businesses find that at some point, because you can come up with great ideas, and in reality, nothing. It's just a hunch right at the beginning. So you kind of take Stephen Johnson's idea of where do good ideas come from. And he talks about this whole theory of, so his TED Talk's a great TED Talk, which I highly recommend. Like, actually, an idea at the beginning is a hunch, a problem which could be solved, but it's only when that hunch can crystallize over other hunches that you actually it actually collides into what the idea is, and that's what that early phase was. So, you need to know when to stop. But equally, you need to know when to get that balance and just hold the nerve at times. And we've had to do that. And at different points, we've had to do it for different reasons. That was about product. I don't think there's a single business on the planet which has gone through the early phases without cash flow being a hot topic, invoices delayed, all that kind of stuff. That's a second kind of hold your nerve kind of situations at times in the early years that you've just got to get used to. It's part and parcel of it, part and parcel of the journey.
Good. So what other key inflection? We got to about day 5 so far, I think. So what other key inflection points?
On day 6, Kevin, this happened. So there's definitely a story. There's definitely a crazy story here in the future, which would be exciting to tell. But yeah, I think breaking into the Middle East, for sure, and amazing early adopters in GEMS, and meeting some people out there. What that speed of decision making so much quicker. That was about a year in. Realistically, the eyes open to how much of a problem we could solve internationally as well. We knew the problems were global, but in certain pockets and regions, that just a different way of thinking was very clear to us. So once we broke into Dubai and Abu Dhabi in particular, we could see like the energy for our product and the will for it to come into their schools. So that was a key moment. And then an interesting thing we went through the PwC Accelerator program.
Okay.
So I'll keep on those 3. There's probably about 1,000, but that was a great program for us to go through. So we were shortlisted. And as a founder CEO, it was kind of like a crash course in just kind of an awareness course, like, David, you're on track, but be aware these are things that you're going to really have to be on top of if you want to scale. So I highly recommend people to look at that as a program. They were wonderful for us, and it really got me thinking about scale in a different kind of way much earlier. And what we needed to do to be able to operate globally. So we went through that program. There was like 400 applicants, 150 businesses. 4 only went through the kind of quarter program we've went through.
Right.
And it was really just this kind of rapid set of learnings in a short space of time. I'm sure there's many more, but they're the ones which kind of spring to mind. But I think I don't think you can not belittle. And that's not what we're doing here. But that early period, and it's a big knock. Like when you've everyone will take risks, whether it's a new startup or leaving a corporate or whatever, and they get out there, they start a business, and what I'm proud of is we worked out really, really quickly the main product direction we were going was gonna tank, or it would take a lot longer. We just like to win that B2C opportunity would be millions and millions and millions of quid. It was potentially a big naive idea, to be fair, right at the beginning. But what I'm really proud of, with my co-founder as well, and my wife Jenny, we immediately made the decision after a dog walk that we needed to take action, not let it sit, not watch. Like we couldn't afford to let it watch longer, and we jumped on it. But that's what we did, and it was the right call.
Brilliant. And who was the way? You mentioned co-founder Jenny, but who?
Jenny.
Yeah.
Jenny. Well, Jenny Harkin, my wife and co-founder. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started the business together, and Jenny's on the board, amazing director, and we've got some amazing directors which have been working for us for a number of years. But what I think, like, actually proudest bit is just the way the team have gelled and grown as well. Like, massive talent, which is wicked. It's a pleasure to work with them on a day-to-day basis, and without them we wouldn't be anywhere. Who was your first key hire? What kind of role? I don't want to. I'm not gonna. What I would say is people always underestimate. Someone says people often leave people too long. Like I don't like our director people, Joe. They often leave that too long in terms of the hire. Right? They often wait till an organization is 10 or 12 or 15 people, because the founder often believes that they can do the hiring, they do the interviewing, they're good at this. And the answer is don't do that. Get someone in who is just quality. And so I think, I've learned to take myself, I'm out of that process now completely, and leave it to someone like Joe. So without a shadow of a doubt, so Joe knows he's a superstar, but I'm not going to, I don't want to offend anybody else in the business listening to this, because they are all superstars, all adding their different ways. But the thing I do find often is entrepreneurs leave that people area too late and get dragged into it. And the only way your business can scale is awesome people coming in. So don't let that happen don't leave it too late. Very good advice. Very interesting too. It stacks absolutely with what we see with business owners trying to scale. And the moment we get people on board, we take on a whole. They should be our biggest asset, but they can become our biggest headache, can't they? Very quickly if we're not careful. We can. We'll do a test here, Kevin. To the first member of the 8 Billion Ideas team which listens to this, who isn't Joe, you'll be surprised if you slack me and show listening. Perfect, brilliant. So have you gone for further funding? So look, we continue to raise by angel, which has been wicked. So that is a strategy as we've grown, and currently still the strategy, because it's giving us lots of flexibility. However, we've got ongoing shortlisting of VCs that we're really enjoying the conversation with. Yeah. So we know that's something we want to bring into play, but it's got to be right. It's got to be right for us. It's got to be right for them. So we've had a lot of conversations. Interesting, a lot of people don't actually understand the market as much as potentially they think they do. Some people want to take the business in a kind of different direction to what I believe is right, or where it should be going. And then through these conversations, you find people which are like-minded, shared values, shared ambitions, and understand what you're building is a business which will grow, but a business which will have a huge impact if we get this right. So this is just about business growth. It's about making a massive dent in this sector, which if we get this right, that's what 8 Bill can do. So we're here to stay. We'll keep doing what we need to do, but we're not going to rush it. Yeah. We're not going to wait too long. It's about cultural fit. So there's one or two I have in mind, and we'll be excited to see how it unfolds.
All right, brilliant. And just going back to the angels, what advice would you give to others that are considering taking on or approaching angels?
Value you value every angel you're lucky to have on board, and every bit of pound money they put into it. I mean, we've had some great angels. One of our Neds really helps me with the communication, because now we've got a great cohort, and I want to make sure they're updated, that they know what's going on. But when you approach angels, I think you've got to be realistic with evaluation. You can't be outrageous. Like, they're taking the risks. Like, if you actually just think about the funding cycle, it's your angels which take the risks, not the VCs, because by that point, the business is gone through messy middle. It's about scale. You've got much more data to prove what you're doing is right. Those angels coming on board with a business which is not revenue generating or early phases, that's where the risk is. So it's but then the reward is in that space as well, where the returns can be significant for those individuals. So you've got to get the valuation right each point. You've got to go get the EIS stuff, all that stuff, to make it more attractive to angels to come on board, and keep them involved, because they're often getting involved because they love what you stand for. They love the sector. Of course, they want to see the return and growth, but they want to see something build, which is having a big impact. So don't just get them on board.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and ignore them. You've got to make sure you've got a strategy to keep everybody up to date, and that's sometimes difficult for particularly a founder when you're trying to win new clients, build a team, communicate with everybody. So just think about how you're trying to build people around you who can help bring everybody up to speed on what's going on.
Great. And how much of the business did you have to give away at that early stage?
So we've been angel led. So we've done it in effectively 4 installments of kind of 5 or 6% each time what we've done. Yeah. So it's been a gradual process of how we've been building the business over the last few years.
Okay, good. And what are some of the key metrics then that you use to know that the business is on track? You mentioned that you're only spending just over 1% or something on your marketing, for example. What are some of the key metrics that you look at?
How happy are our partners? Metrics number 1. Are your clients happy, and do you have a transparent and good relationship with them that you can talk through things to adjust? That's got to be the focus, right? You can't build a business without happy people out there. So that's got to be number 1, right? Number 2, to me, sometimes revenue can be misleading in terms of the fact, where's that revenue coming from, right? Is what I was more concentrating on. So is it coming from across the sector? Is there certain countries that is growing? So you've got to not only get good revenue growth, you've got to show that you've got a global product within that revenue, even the early stages. Winning a client in Vietnam or Hong Kong, in Dubai, in India, in London, in Tanzania, wherever it might be. If you're doing that, then that's interesting, which is what we've been doing, right? So yes, EBITDA, GP, revenue, that's important. 100% it's important, but there's actually more important stuff underneath that. Are the people which are buying off you while your product is in early year stage giving you good feedback and good NPS scores? Number 1. Number 2, are you getting clients from across sector in an industry, which is equally important? Because if you can service schools or businesses which are deemed as premium, as well as maybe in more challenging budget environments and across the sector, then you're doing something which is helping lots of people in lots of different ways. And if you're doing that early on as a business, I think that's good signs.
Excellent. Good. And I imagine once you, I may be wrong, but I would imagine once you have a client, they're a pretty sticky client. They can stay with you for quite some time, aren't they?
Well, you hope so. That would be the plan. So what you see is, as our sales team evolves that kind of commercial part of the business, you see the kind of then growth of client executives rather than pure sellers. So you're concentrating on the retention and growth of that relationship and that client. So sometimes the contract value from year to year might dip, might increase, whatever. What you want to do is show that retention of that client who's still coming back to 8 bill, which is really nice to see. So we're seeing that from year 1 to 2 to 3. If there's any drop off, typically it's because of an issue in potentially a school, or the head that has just moved on immediately, so you've got to restart the relationship. So you got to analyze that as well, but don't take for granted those early adopters. Work hard for them more than ever before, in particularly year 3 and year 4, if they took that leap of faith in the first few years.
Great. So what do you love? You obviously love what you're doing. What do you love most about what you do?
I love the impact of the student. I love working with children. I think children, our mission is about giving students the skills and belief to change the world. Every child I've met anywhere across the planet, Kevin, has an amazing imagination. They're all different. They all need different support and different ways of building up belief. So my favorite part has always got to be, and always will be, is when 8Bill are making a big difference to a child's life. So to me, that's what gives the energy. So look, there's hard days. I was with my family over the summer for a little bit of holiday in a ball pond with my 7 and 4-year-old and 1-year-old jumping over me, 3 boys. And I said to my wife, a bit of a joke, like, being in this ball pond is like running a business. You've got all these different balls, like plates you're spinning all the time. And you've got to find a way of keeping sane and keeping going and handling your own emotion as well as everybody else. But it's easier to do when you've got something you're passionate about, and it's much easier to do when it's making a positive impact on a child's life. Yeah,
fantastic. And what's your biggest challenge at the moment? What do you see as the biggest challenge in the future?
Sleep. Number one. Like, joking aside, like, genuine, like, I've read a book which was helpful and not helpful a long time ago by the former CEO of IBM, and there's a phrase in there about only the paranoid survive. And it was a good phrase to read because it made you think, actually, you've got to be on top of everything. But then equally, it kind of sometimes creates a habit where it really is hard to kind of switch off. So for me, actually just personal well-being, the team, as you grow and scale, you've got to keep an eye on that, which we're more conscious of. So that definitely is a challenge. You don't get your own burnout. So keeping fit, eating well, drinking well, that's number one. From a business point of view, it will be how do you continue to grow and manage the kind of first 100 customers in the way that you do today, when you've got 1,000 customers, making sure that they're still getting that TLC that they deserve, and then when you've got 10,000, exactly the same. So it's not the growth, it's the protection, the relationships, and that service element of the growth, and that quality element of the growth that you just got to keep an eye on. Not worried about it, but it's something I've got my focus on.
Brilliant. So if we're sitting down in 5 years' time, what does success look like for you?
Global domination.
Yeah, thought it might.
Every school on the planet in some sort of capacity. And look, we've got to think big. Someone's got to think big. Someone's got to dream big. Someone's got to come up with silly stuff at times. But we're forming partnerships. We've got a great partnership with Sir Clive Woodward. We're about to launch something with Michael Morpurgo, the British author. Different people are wanting to collaborate. We're really concentrating on building even more free resources as well to get out to the schools where budget is a problem. And I think, like, if you look at it in 5 years' time, that's 15 academic terms. You can achieve a lot in that period of time. If you keep building your business every day and making it better today than it was yesterday. So that's 1,500 days, forgive me, of 1,800 days of improvement. And I think given what we've done in the first 900 days as a business, it's quite exciting to think what we can achieve in that period of time.
Yeah.
So world domination is the plan. And I'd like us to be seen as a global education business supporting everyone. So students in and outside of school of all ages, but I don't see us like changing the critical curriculum area. I think it'd be that. That is where we will be concentrating on, because those areas are relevant for a 40-year-old, 65-year-old, a 2-year-old learning about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
For example, lots of entrepreneurs out there who need help and guidance. And a lot of stuff we teach students who are 11, 12, 13 are relevant to an older someone in a different part of their career, an older person is what I was going to say. So it needs pivot, needs changing, needs adaptation. So don't change. I don't see the critical curriculum area changing. I see expanding to sustainability tech, making sure financial literacy is, built into all of that in different areas. But world domination will be my answer to that question.
Brilliant. Good. So 1 or 2 quick fire questions before we close, if that's all right. So if you go back to your younger self, I don't know whether that would be when you're at Tunbridge Wells or grammar school or some other point, but what advice would you give your younger self?
Be you, be kind.
Yep.
Continue to do that and hold your, I've always kind of backed myself, even in difficult times. School wasn't always easy for myself. There's pockets of moments which are really difficult. I'm dyslexic, so university wasn't really easy, but just be you, be kind, back yourself, and just always act with integrity, which I have done and will do.
Brilliant. Good. You mentioned a couple already, but any books, podcasts, learning resources that you would recommend others to take a look at?
Yeah, 4 would be mine. Simon Sinek's Start With Why is a pretty obvious one, but a hell of a one to watch if you're really thinking about positioning of your business. You've got to do that, not just you, but you as a brand. Sheryl Sandberg, Lean In, really encouraging teams and people around you to speak up. That was a really interesting one. For me in education, so Ken Robinson, Schools Kill Creativity, wicked one. Yeah. And actually I'll finish off with Stephen Johnson, Where Do Good Ideas Come From? Really interesting in thinking about that fear of hunches kind of colliding. So there's books and TED Talks there immediately. And equally my book, The Ripple Effect.
Of course, yes, you've written your own book. So remind us, what's that called?
What kind of entrepreneur am I? I'm not even bloody promoting my own book. So The Ripple Effect by David J. Harkin. It's a great book, great read.
Brilliant. Good. Of course, excellent. And you've got such a low spend on marketing ad spend, whatever. What is your primary route for getting more customers?
Word of mouth, recommendation, conferences, speaking, talking. Never ever get bored of your business. Look, don't get me wrong. We want to ramp up the marketing for sure. But you've got never ever get bored of talking about your business. Take every opportunity. You never know where a conversation will go. And where a connection will go, and how clients will take you on to the next one, or they'll talk about you in a good light. So if you're prepared to do that relentlessly, and you're building something which is good, and you're doing it in the right way, people will come, and just look after them when they do.
Brilliant. Fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, David. Really learned a lot, really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you very much, Steve, for being my guest on ScaleUp Radio today. If somebody would like to get hold of you or find out more about 8 Bill, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn, davidjharkin.com. davidjharkin.com is a website, but go to LinkedIn is probably the quickest way to do it. David J. Harkin, or 8billionideas.com. And yeah, take a look at it. Love making new connections and networking. Any questions, just fire it to me, and I'll do my best to come back.
Brilliant. David, thank you very much.
Cheers, Kevin. Thank you. Have a great day.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.